Hey everybody, Mike from Mike and the Feather here. We just got done recording the very first episode of the BYO podcast. This is something we're doing with a very good friend of mine named Peter, who I've known for over 20 years. One of the first people I started playing poker with. He is an ex-dealer, he is a crazy gambler, and he is one of the town's funniest bartenders. So together with his friend Lance in California, we put together a little fantasy baseball drafting podcast for you this past week. And you'll be seeing Peter in more videos very soon, as we've been hanging out at the soon-to-be a pile of rubble, Tropicana, on the Strip, potentially the new home for the Oakland Athletics. So stay tuned, and welcome to the first episode of the BYO podcast.
Hey guys, Peter here with Lance of the BYO podcast. We're here to talk a little bit of baseball and other random subjects. How are you doing, Lance?
Doing pretty good. Well, I had the worst round of golf I've ever played in my life today, but other than that, doing fine.
Where did you shoot?
Not going to say.
Come on, say
it. There's at least triple digits. Let's say that.
All right, over 110?
Yeah.
Yeah, my man. No broken clubs, though?
No, I did throw my club, but it didn't break.
It doesn't count unless it breaks. I still have 3 irons broken in my set that I haven't repaired over the years. So, all right. So, with the BYO podcast, we're doing a little bit of a shtick here. I'm gonna bring something new to drink every week, and then Lance, if you want to do this, is dragon's milk. So
I've had it before.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's very strong. It's
very strong. It's
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's what the I forget what they're called now.
It's a bourbon barrel aged stout.
That's what I was looking for.
And it's 11%, so it's basically like 3 beers in one.
Yeah.
So this is good stuff. And then we have a possible rendering, I guess, of what the Las Vegas A's stadium is going to look like.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Actually, it doesn't even show the inside of the dome. It's supposed to have a big, like, overlapping arch, like, screen of some sort, but...
That's going to be over where the Flamingo is, right?
They're tearing down the Tropicana.
The Trop, that's it.
Yeah, I think the last day to go to the Trop is coming up sometime soon. Not sure when it is, but it's sometime within, like, the next month, so... If you want to go see the glorious Tropicana real quick, time to get your last chance in, and then go see the worst pit bosses I've ever seen in my life. I've never been given such a hard time playing blackjack by pit bosses there. It's insane. Like, actually getting kicked off, actually didn't get kicked off there. I got kicked off over in some other town. but yeah, these pit bosses were like, playing $10 a hand or something, and it's like winning a little bit up 100, tipping the dealer, and the pit boss is treating us like we're the MIT blackjack team, like absolutely insane. So
That's the first place I ever gambled.
Oh, nice. Well, scotch down it into my belly.
So wait, you brought on the dragon's milk and then drank scotch instead.
I'm chasing it with the dragon's milk.
God.
Me and Lance actually co-own a 12-team rotisserie, or 12-team league rotisserie baseball team. We've been doing it for, God, what has it been now since, it's been like 12 years now or something. It's a deep league, 5 outfielders, like 3 utility, middle infield, corner infield. And the competition's gotten stiffer over the years. It actually was pretty bad, and the guys have gotten better, so... It's definitely given us a little bit of a curve to how we've gotten better with our strategies and stuff. And one thing we've always liked to do is draft not sexy players. There's a lot of times people don't want somebody who just doesn't have a lot of upside. And even though drafting one breakout hitter can be nice, it's not going to win you the league in a really deep format, because 162 games, it's 6 months long. It's the deepest fantasy sport you have. It's the deepest roster you have. It's the longest season, and having some stable guys at really good affordable prices it's worth it. Like, I just believe you got to be the chubby chaser in the league. Like, you really.
Yeah, one thing too to it's obvious, but with baseball, the life of a career life is a lot longer than something like football. So somebody who's been in the league for 10, 12 years is not like, your instinct is just to be like, oh shit, I can't want that guy. He's ancient. But a lot of these guys are, hitting their prime at that point in time. So
34, they can still be excellent.
Yeah, like I was looking at Kevin Gossman. That guy's been in the league for like 10 years now or something. I was like blown away. I'm like,
yeah, and he's finally a stud. Yeah, and he's probably going to be a stud for another 5 years. Yeah. Some of the guys that we've done in the past that we have a little bit of track record with is that in like David Ortiz, I remember at one time. There was a time when he was just like not considered something you really wanted. I remember I was late to an auction draft. Like my alarm didn't go off, and one of the guys was drafting for me. I show up late. He has like 3 players, and he drafted me like David Ortiz really cheap. And this was maybe 14 years ago. And I just didn't really want him. I'm like, you straddled me with him, blah, blah, blah. He ended up being like my best keeper for 2 years. It was a keeper league, a salary keeper league. Another guy that we would go after over recent years until just maybe the last couple is Nelson Cruz. No one cared about him, but he just hit 40 home runs. He got him cheap. We even kept him for like a couple bucks a couple times. Football, Frank Gore was a guy like that back in the day. No one wanted him, but he was just good, and so you get those values. So if you can find at least one of those guys, if not 2, that helps fill in a lot of holes for value in your roster. Is there anybody you can think of that crosses your mind?
Then of course there's the infamous Justin Upton draft.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this was Justin Upton when he was in his prime, and he was
maybe
best.
At the tail end of his prime.
Yeah, he was still he was still a guy you could count on, and we definitely needed another bat. We had money to spend. We go on a break, and we're like, okay, we have to get Justin Upton because there's a big fall off after this point. We need a hitter. And we're this is the time in auction league, $260 salary. He's probably figuring he's going to go like $25, $27, something like that. And that's realistic in this league because it's a keeper. And then I it's never worked since. But I did this thing where I just kind of outbid myself, whereas like it opens for like $6 and I'm like 7, and someone goes 8 and I'm like 9, 10, 11, 12. And then everybody just went quiet, and the auctioneer was the commissioner's son, and he goes, once, twice, sold. And we're like, oh, word, $12.
They we look around the room, we're like, holy shit, we just got Justin Upton for $12.
We're just like high-fiving, and then the commissioner, in all of his fairness, decides to retract the sold on the player because everybody got confused and didn't say anything. So reopens the bidding, which you do not do in auctions, which is very noble of him to do for everybody else. And then everybody sits around, just goes once, twice, sold, and we get him for $12. So, but that's a perfect example. He just wasn't sexy. Even if we got him at 20, we would have been happy, but somehow mind fucked the whole league. And everybody just paused and kind of, just froze up. And then he ended up being a keeper for us for at least a year. And so that worked out. Yeah, and then this year, I was kind of looking at it. Naylor on the, can I call them the Indians? I got the hat there. But Naylor, like last year, he missed some games, but he still hit, I think, in the low 20s in home runs. He batted over 300 in an age when you don't have 300 hitters anymore. And if he can put together a similar season, I think he's going to not be very sexy because he just doesn't have like 35 home run upside. But if he puts together 300 average, other counting stats, he's not on in a sexy lineup or anything like that. He's somebody, if you can get for a few or several dollars, he'll fill in really nicely. And then there's the kind of standard guys that are a little bit older in their career, like Arenado, Bregman. Not going to win you the league, but if you get him at value, and you just have to play your league, because sometimes guys will pay a fair price for Arenado, but he's not young, up and coming. He's not Ellie De La Cruz, where he can throw the ball 100 miles an hour from the shortstop position and hit 490-foot home runs. But if he's undervalued, just keep your eye out, and that's auction, that's snake, whatever round you can get him in. A lot of those guys can fall to you.
Paul Goldschmidt's another one, although he's still ranked up there, but I think the perception of him is that he's older or has lost something.
Yeah, and he kind of I feel like already went through that.
Yeah, he did actually. He went down and came back up.
Yeah, a few years ago, because he was elite, and then he kind of fell off, and everybody was like, meh, and then he kind of picked it back up and started doing all right again. So, and he might go through another lull like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
yeah, I think the other category of player that we like to go after and tend to go after is sort of the post-hype sleeper, the guy,
like Kevin Gosman that we missed on like 3 years in a row.
that we had for every year until he was actually good, and then we didn't have him anymore.
Yeah, we gave up on him, and then he broke out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I had a few guys like that that I sort of highlighted for this year. Jonathan India, he actually had a decent year last year. I think he fell off towards the end of the season, but basically, he won Rookie of the Year, and then kind of had like a bit of a slump, or basically kind of fell off a little bit, and everybody kind of forgot about him. But that's the kind of person, again, when I started off, I said, it's baseball's a long career. There's a lot of time for someone to get better and to essentially have a slump and then come back out of it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah, and then with him, one thing that I'd pay attention to, at least this year, he's not a huge stolen base guy. I think his last year he had like 14 stolen bases. I just looked at it, but this year he's dealing with a plantar fasciitis thing. So just be aware of that. So if those little bit of steals that he gets matters, maybe kind of downgrade him. Like he's not going to end up in the 15 range. He might be a little under 10. So be a little aware of that if you're needing that tiny bit of speed. If you're not in a points league.
Can I bring up another name? Same category?
Yeah, shoot.
Jared Kalanick.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing. Great rookie season. Kind of nothing for like 2 years, but he's over in Atlanta now. I think he's I'm assuming going to be hitting at the back end of their lineup. So not a great spot, but
one thing with him is that they don't really have a bunch of offensive depth that I have to worry about. You have to worry about him like losing his job unless he's really horrible.
Yeah.
So, and then he was a highly, I think he was like a top 3 prospect at one point, and he hasn't totally put it together. But also, I just like it when guys like that go to these teams like the Rays and the Braves that know what they're doing and know how to work with players. If he went to the crappy Angels, I think he'd be out of baseball in 2 years. Like done.
There would be no drafting him whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, let's take a look here. And then, a topic that I wanted to go over a little bit was closers and some of the strategy on that. Closers is pretty volatile these days. It used to be every team had a closer, and now they don't. They usually end up with like 3 by the end of the year. So it's one of those things, if you're going to spend a draft pick, if you're going to spend the money, you want to make sure the guy's got the closing job for sure. And then one of the big things that me and Lance do every year is that when we target some closers, we want at least 2 safe ones. We don't get somebody who's going to be on a team that's going to trade them in August.
Yeah.
Because that kills you. And all of a sudden you lose a month and a half of a closer, and you got to use like this league we're in, we actually have limited free agent moves. So that's a big deal. Other places, sometimes it's fab. You don't want to light your fab on fire trying to figure out a closer for the last month because you're desperate. And we've had that, and it kills your free agent moves. It kills your fab. If you're chasing closers and you can't find a stable one, it just ruins your life. So, so things, and then also like things I'll look at is, say it's a middle road team or a lesser team, and you're not totally sure, you're a little on the fence. Look at their contract situation. Do they have 1 year left? Are they going to, is that team just going to want to like off them for a prospect? Their eligibility and arbitration. If they only have a year or 2 left, way easier to trade to a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees and get prospects. If they don't, if they're younger or they have a 4-year deal, then, and they're on the middle team, they're like on the Red Sox or something, they'll probably stick around because the Red Sox are going to try to at least compete next year. So I think that's valuable stuff to kind of keep in mind for closers.
Yeah, I agree. I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that was something we went over, and we kind of we've been doing that for years. So
Yeah, that's been our successful strategy. Usually, I mean, the only thing I can add is essentially most leagues either have 9 or 10 pitching spots. The one that we share is 10. I think the standard is typically 9, but we usually try to start with three closers, guys that have the job, like you talked about. It's better to have a closer without great stats who's going to keep the job, who has the job, than to speculate on someone who might end up with a job in the future, or somebody who's in some kind of like closer by committee type situation, you know?
Yeah, and that comes down to knowing managers and how teams are run. And because if you do a little research, you'll find there are teams that have managers that believe in the closer thing, or they just got a guy they trust, and they'll do that. So in other places like the Rays, they really do closer by committee a lot. So, and then last year, I think they really did stick to a closer for quite a while, if not most of the season, but I don't trust it because they've never really done that before. So,
right.
Another kind of area of players I wanted to get into were kind of the idea of not overdrafting, either on unproven talent or injury risk players, or just big question marks. It's just kind of red flag kind of guys. It's like the girl not to date. Like if she's got like, this is what I always think of. It's like, so what kind of tattoo is the biggest red flag for a girl to have? like I think like the foot tattoo is a scary one.
Really?
Yeah, like if they're just on the top of their foot, it's like I look at that and I'm like, oh. But it's like some of these red flag ones, like Ellie De La Cruz. Like I'm keeping him in a league I have. Obviously, like talent off the charts, but the extreme, insane high level tools, and there's too many highlights of the guy, like scares a part of me. Because also at the end of the season he wasn't hitting that well, and that's the thing. I think he has a lot of holes in his swing. He's probably the fastest guy in the major leagues. Great, he's going to get you a lot of steals, or at least substitute some of his poor hitting streaks with steals in even a points league. And rotisserie steals are valuable. But him showing off his arm in the infield, like what's his name, O'Neal Cruz Jr. on the Pirates, same thing. That doesn't translate into fantasy value necessarily. And some of these guys, I think people just get immersed with the sexy, and that's not being be a chubby chaser. Stop trying to bang the hot chick.
Javi Baez was the most exciting player to watch in baseball.
Oh Javi.
Did not translate into fantasy success.
Yeah, he had he had one big year or something, right?
Yeah, he did. He had one big year, but
but he was like, he was super fun to watch. Just all his fielding plays and great defensive player, and all those tools just didn't translate. They got him to stop swinging at breaking balls out of the zone for one season,
1 year.
Yeah, and then it was like he just forgot it. So, Tyler Glasnow is one that scares me just because he's super talented, but he's very erratic, and gets injured a lot. He's just a long, tall, lanky guy, and I think his control gets a little messed up at times.
Yeah, I feel like the Yankees power guys are kind of like that too. They seem injury.
Yeah, Judge has been a little healthier recently, but Judge always scares me because of injury. Giancarlo Stanton, I think at least Giancarlo's like lost so much value that he might actually have some value late if you don't, because you're not going to have to rely on him.
Yeah.
And then he could also he bats 240 and hits 48 home runs, and then you love life. But guys like when you have going into the season that are not on contract, especially pitchers like Blake Snell, he's obviously so up and down year to year, and now he's not even getting his spring work in. I don't want to.
I'm opposite of you. I think I'm excited for Snell. Yeah, I like Snell, but
that's just because
it's only because it's only because he had I think at least if you draft before he ends up on a team, you're gonna get him at a good discount.
Fair, yeah. It's all value based. That's true.
Yeah, as soon as he gets picked up, I'm sure his auction price, draft stock will rise and he probably won't be a value anymore. But if you can get him before he signs, then you're probably getting him, at least a bit of a discount because people are going to be a little bit risk averse with something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he's going to end up on the shitty little Angels.
Okay. Well, if he ends up on the shitty little Angels, then it was not a very good use.
No, but that is the absolute perfect big signing. That's all they do.
It's true.
So little backstory, big Angels fan for a long time. Like I grew up in LA, baseball fan since I was young. The guy that got me into baseball was a Yankees fan. So when I was a kid, I was a Yankees fan. And then I got a little disenfranchised with them just because of how they were running their team, trading prospects, signing and trading for old post-prime Kevin Browns and Randy Johnsons and trying to stack their team and not being good at it. And nothing makes me hate a franchise more than if they just run it poorly. So I was kind of like getting away from that, but I still watched baseball. And then the Angels signed Vlad Guerrero and Kelvin Escobar and some of these guys. And me and my buddy Richard, we started to kind of take a liking to him, going to games, and became a fan since then. But I just can't take it anymore. Like I filed,
You're back out.
Oh, 100%. Like last year, I was like, if they don't trade Ohtani for a haul of prospects or just open the checkbook and pay him whatever he wants, like if they don't get prospects for him and don't keep him, like filing for divorce. And it's over. It was a loveless marriage the whole time. I didn't know it. I'm fucking done, man. So
you're officially an A's fan now?
Oh, definitely going to be.
Have you adopted the local team, the new local team?
I adopted a child I've never met. We're getting to know each other, and I hope this can grow into something nice.
Are they playing at the 51 stadium this year, or the college?
So they have one more year in Oakland.
Oh, okay.
At the Coliseum, and then after that, it's up in the air. So the minor league stadium, which it's not the 51s anymore, it's the Aviators. And then, I think that's the idea because I think they have like 15 to 20,000 seats there.
Yeah.
At that one, so they could pull that off, and they could probably figure out a little more attendance maybe somehow if they wanted to, but I think that's the speculation. But I've also seen things like them playing in Salt Lake City or something, or other places for a couple of years. I don't know. Anyways, Blake Snell is definitely an Angel in
100%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like Albert Pujols just like career goes to crap. Like they spent 10 years and 200 something million on Pujols. They signed Rendon and he just doesn't like baseball and is always hurt. And now this is another big contract they can give to somebody to just ruin them and keep them at about 70 wins and not get good draft picks. And that'll be terrible.
Yeah. That sounds like the Angels.
Mm-hmm. Those sons of bitches. We live in a day where there's no more sleepers.
No.
There's too much information. So I think you can occasionally find something, but you're really going to make like a super dart throw, and then you'll look smart for taking it in like whatever, the 20th round of your draft or something like that, or a $2 player in an auction. And I was looking at some average draft position stuff, and Encarnacion Strand on the Reds, huge power upside, and he's going in a range I feel like for his potential, he would tend to be a guy that would be overhyped a little more and being overdrafted, and I don't think he's a huge value necessarily, but he's not being overdrafted at least. So I kind of like him, and he's great ballpark for home runs, obviously. Tristan McKenzie on the formerly known as Indians, the team formerly known as the Indians. He was in and out of some injury and pitched like 4 or 5 games last year, I think. And he ended up having a sprained UCL, which is the Tommy John ligament, but he didn't tear it. So he missed the whole season. And I think he got close to coming back last year, which is good because he had the whole off season to kind of prep. And it's optimistic this year, but he was like lights out before that. So
I don't know if he's considered sleepery or not, but
I actually didn't look at really average draft position. I just figured he'd probably go in a range that I was okay with. He was somebody that we can get into this if we want to talk about future sports betting, like the degenerates we are. He was somebody that had like huge odds on a Cy Young, and I was kind of like, a little dart throw. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you went 2 for 2 last year, so well, 2 for something.
It was something. It was definitely something.
You know what? It was profitable, so we're just gonna leave it at that.
Did you have anybody that you looked at that you were kind of like piqued your interest?
I mean, it's not super sleepery. I think a lot of people are on him, but I like Jackson Holiday
Yeah.
in Baltimore. Actually, I like Baltimore a lot this year, but I'm not the only one. I was looking at World Series odds, and I think they're like 4th highest in the AL or something like that. Like I think they're probably overly hyped at this point, but I think that they're actually a pretty solid team, and they're probably going to do pretty well, and they're probably going to win that division, which is still tough and is saying a lot. But yeah, I like them.
Yeah, I do too. I bet. So I was kind of looking at some futures bets, and Corbin Burns, when he signed, it didn't change the line on them. Like, at least the one I looked at, which was just making the World Series, winning the American League. So, because I think it was like plus 700 or something like that, so 7-1. And then they signed him, and I looked, and it was still there. So I got that price. So I was like, because that's what I felt like they needed was a stud pitcher.
Yeah, I think I was looking at it. I think it's still like 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as sleepers and long shots, I have not really dug into those guys yet. And like you said, it's almost impossible at this point to even. It's just like anybody that anybody's heard of has been probably talked about to death on any other podcast that anyone's listening to.
Yeah, and the thing is, at this point, you just like, and people don't do it, but it's like I play fantasy with so many people that don't know what they're doing. I won't say his name. No. He's not even paying attention. Anyways. No. But so many people that don't know what they're doing or they're new. And I go, it's pretty easy. Just find, like, if you want, I'll tell you a couple people, but there's a bunch of people out there that know what they're doing with rankings and value assessment, and just follow their sheet. If you just do that, you'll probably be able to outthink some of the people that know what they're doing. because people reach all the time. Someone that should be an 8th round pick or cost $20 in an auction, and they reach and they overspend and they kill themselves, and they didn't have to. It's like it's the person in the draft, like perfect example, Todd's league, the football league. His sister Stacy would always draft Patriots like Brady and Gronk, no matter the year, 1st and 2nd round, right? And and that's an extreme example, but you don't have to take these guys 3 rounds early, because no one else is going to snag them 3 or 4 rounds early. If they're ranked 80th, you don't need to take them at like the 48th pick, ever. And it's like you're going to ruin all the fun in your season by doing that, because you're not going to compete.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's not quite that extreme of examples, but like if you're in a snake draft and you're at one of the ends, so let's say you're in a 12-team snake draft, if you're at 1, you're going to be waiting 24 picks before it comes back around to you, 23, whatever the number ends up being. Right. You do have to kind of look, if there's somebody you really want and they're 30 spots away, well, all it takes is somebody in the next 23 picks to reach 10 spots instead of you reaching 30 at that point. It's a bit more of an extreme example, but there is a logic to it. But that's also why auction drafts are better than everything else, because you can just get the players you want for whatever the price that's set by the people in the draft.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody becomes unavailable. We're just going to go over quickly just some evaluation of our keepers that we have to keep in an auction league. We can keep guys up to 3 years total, 2 additional years from when we draft them. And whatever salary you draft them at is the price you can keep them at. It doesn't increase, whatever it is. So at least just a little quick breakdown of some of our lines of thinking on it, because mainly – so here's the deal. One thing I actually wanted to talk about is listening. It's kind of like when I would play poker. One of my favorite things that I got was listening to players, whether good or bad, it didn't matter. They didn't have to be good to learn something. Listening to them evaluate their hand while they're playing, like online, and then videoing themselves, on what they're doing step by step and what their line of thinking is really educational. And that's why I'll listen to podcasts. I'll listen to podcasts of people that I don't like the ESPN podcast. I had friends that stopped liking it because Matthew Berry was on it. And I loved it because Matthew Berry was on it, because I thought he had a bunch of terrible takes. And it helped me understand what people think when they're making mistakes in fantasy football. And I'm sure he's overall like fine, and he does pretty well in his leagues, but he says some of the most ridiculous crap. And I'm like, oh, that's what so-and-so thinks in this league when he thinks that, like, so you can think with it and get to understand how people think, and you can take advantage of them in trades, or you can outdraft them, or know that, you know, if a pick's coming around, like say someone has the end pick and they have the 10th and 11th pick and you have the 9th and 12th, you might understand that they might do something really terrible, and it can give you an advantage, whatever it might be. So listening to us to have a dialogue on this, it's more for us, but whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's going to help, you know?
Yeah, I'm just going to add in real quick. The other thing that's beneficial too is knowing people's biases, knowing what team they root for.
Yep.
You know, our whole league knows that we're going to draft a shitload of Cubs because of me, and we're going to overpay for them. And Peter and I always know that.
You ruin things just that much. That's why we finish second a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But even like the thing you were saying about Matthew Berry, you know where his worst takes are? That's when he's talking about his
Redskins
team.
Yeah. And then also you can understand that, like, and the thing is, people give away their stuff. People can't keep their mouth shut. But like Matthew Berry, actually, because he knew his team, sometimes had decent takes on some players. Like I remember before anybody really knew who he was, who was the tight end, Jordan something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right? And he was really injury prone, but he was really good talent. Like he was actually, that was a great sleeper, and I kind of took advantage of that because I believed, because he based it with something that made sense. So when you're listening to people, they can just go, I like blah, blah, blah. And if they don't give you a good reason, I ignore it. And if they give you a good reason because they're a fan and they follow it and they listen to like the beat reporters and they watch preseason games, whatever, things like that, that's huge because they're paying attention. Matthew Berry's paying attention to the Redskins 500 million times more than Commanders?
Commanders.
This is getting really awkward.
Commanders and Guardians, Peter. Get it right.
Son of a bitch. God, I'm such an old man. So basically, we got some kind of just ones that are obvious. We got like Corbin Carroll at 16.
Yeah, just to give a quick recap, we keep 7 players.
Right.
And we have probably what I consider at least 4 guys that are no-brainers. We have Corbin Carroll for $16, which he would probably go, 42, 45, maybe even up to 50 plus in that league.
Yeah, I saw him ranked as like the number 6 overall player on one ranking sheet I saw.
Yeah, I've seen him higher than that in a couple too. Reminds me of one other thing. If you're in a league with keepers and you're doing auctions, realize that the prices of players are going to be higher because people if they're smart, have saved money by keeping players who should be more valuable. So there's if you look at a price and it says that, the guy should be 30, you can probably add at least 20% to that and say like the guy should be at least 36 in this league with keepers.
Yeah, in our league, we always add 15 to 20%, I think. Yeah. And even the football league, I think it works out about 15 to 20% because if you're keeping a player at $10, it's $40. That's just money that's not spent. So it gives it to people to be able to effectively raise the price of people.
Yeah, exactly. So we have Corbin Carroll at 16. We have Luis Castillo at 16. Yep. We have Spencer Strider at $10. That was a fantastic pickup. And we have Grayson Rodriguez at $1, which was also a great draft pick by us last year. Way to go.
Yep, exactly.
So we have we've got at least 4 of our 7 spots locked up. So then if we want to discuss the rest, I had Cody Bellinger as a pretty much we're probably going to keep him guy at $2.
I'm with you.
I think there's not much to argue about with that. And then I was leaning. We have Josh Naylor at $2, which is probably number 6 on my list. And then we have to figure out which of our 3 shortstops we want to keep.
Right. Yeah, Naylor. Yeah, he's projected for like 312 this year, 23 home runs, 105 RBIs. 8 steals, 57 runs. That hurts a little bit, but for $2, that's awesome.
Yeah, for $2, it's all about value. So it's not always about like having the best player. You know, we've got Juan Soto. We could keep Juan Soto for $42. It's not really any value in doing so.
Yeah, because we're just going to draft him for $42 or $44 anyway, so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
If we want him, we can get him.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically our 3 shortstops are Kim on the Padres, Trevor Story, and Dansby Swanson, or as my girlfriend likes to call him Dansby, because she was a Braves fan and he broke her little heart.
Oh.
So
I'm not sad about that.
Yeah, and Dansby's what, $6 or $7? $7.
Yeah, we have Dansby for $7. Kim is 10, so that's the problem. He's probably the best ranked of the 3, but he's also the most expensive.
Yeah,
and then Trevor Story is $1, but don't really know what we're gonna get out of him this year. So I don't know how much I really want to.
Yeah, because he obviously hurt. Not in Colorado where he really did a lot of his damage. And then the thing is, like, so the difference between Dansby and Kim is $3. That's almost like, who cares? And so I'd rather have Kim, I think, than Dansby. But then when you look at the $9 difference, it's like risk reward. And then is it really worth $9 to possibly have some recurring injury? Or Trevor wasn't hitting really well last year. Like, if he ends up batting like 230, it's like, it doesn't matter if he hits 18 home runs and steals 30 bases. If he's batting 230, 220 and like really struggling, it helps, but it's a little bit to overcome, where Kim across the board was valuable and good. And sometimes it's worth just giving up that $9, because also I know that when we draft, we draft pretty well. We usually find some values. We don't overspend. So when it comes to, I think some other managers really try to nitpick at like saving a few bucks, because they do overspend and they overpay $5 or $10 for a couple players they shouldn't. And they get themselves stuck in spots where in an auction draft, when you have that tier that starts to go away, like say a starting pitcher, right? And you need a stud, and then the last stud is on the board and he should go for $38, but he goes for $46 because everybody wants him because he's the last one. You kind of kill yourself. But if you just went ahead and got somebody earlier, you would have got someone better for a better price.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Like, we know that we don't make that mistake. I have made that mistake plenty in my life, but that was years ago, and I've figured out how not to screw that up anymore. So if you know yourself, you can not worry about it, because in the draft you're going to save the money, and then you can take a stable, safer pick. Like I think we're probably talking ourselves into keeping Kim.
Yeah.
But yeah, that difference between $12 and $1, and Story has some question marks, and he was hurt, and I read some reports on him. There's a little bit of some iffy stuff, and it's like, if we want him, what are we going to get him at? We're going to get him probably.
Honestly, we could probably get him for $1 again, maybe $2.
Maybe I can see him even if he went for like $8 or $10. It's like, who cares? If we want it, if we need a middle infielder and he's looking good by the time the draft comes up in a couple of weeks, then we take him. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You know? Or we let him do someone else's mistake.
One of my really successful actions especially with our auction draft, but in general, has been essentially setting up our own roster sheet and getting projections and basing as we get. It's really a matter of when you get later in the draft, but you can start to look at what you have and what you need. So what I always do is I basically take every single stat category from the previous year, and I get the number of what got first place in that. So for example, last year it was, there's 300, the guy who got first place in home runs had 340 home runs. RBIs was 1,198, stolen bases 298, so on and so forth for each of the categories. And then as we go through the draft, I have got a sheet with projections. I just copy and paste those guys into our roster as we go. And we can figure out like, hey, we're really low on steals. Let's see if we can, find a guy that can give us steals. Next time that white hot speed comes up, we're going to be, we'll be bidding on him and be like, shit, we really need steals. So we're going to overspend by $3 or $4 on this guy, because that's the category that we know that we're going to struggle in if we don't get him. know, and if you get to the end of a tier, if you get to, the last 20 steal guy is on the board, and after that it drops off into the teens, you're going to have to spend for that guy, and it sucks, and you shouldn't have waited, but sometimes that happens.
Yeah, there was a year that it was one of those tier drop-offs. I think this was before we co-owned the league or the team together in that league. Brian Roberts was on the Orioles. He was a second baseman, and he was like I want to say high 20s to maybe 30s, like steal guy. And there were like 3 teams that bid him up, and he should have been like a $20 player, and he went for like $38.
Yeah.
Because they fucked up drafting their team so bad, and they left themselves so vulnerable in steals in a roto league, which like if you're punting steals, you're gonna have a hard time figuring it out. And then someone spent like $38, and they could have had a top 10 player for $38, right. Or top 15 player, but they got Brian Roberts and his 28 steals and his 280 average that year or whatever it was. So it's like, and you just kill yourself. And if you've done auction, that's a mistake you can make. So don't do it. Same thing with Snake. You got to pay attention. If you're just drafting all power guys, you're gonna leave your nose open to not having steals. Now again, depends on certain stats. Be mindful of what stats you're going to come out of a draft weekend, because something like saves, easier to recover from. Relievers and closers,
or to just punt entirely.
Yeah, punt entirely. But even if you go like, well, I only got one closer that I really trust and 2 speculative closers, those guys don't work out. You on those teams of the guys you drafted, you could pick up the guy that becomes the closer maybe, or especially if it's fab, which is kind of like the auction league equivalent of Snake versus the whole waiver wire thing. So with fab, because you have access to everybody, you can just bid on them weekly. Steals sometimes, at least throughout the season, later in the season, a little easier to come by, doesn't cost you as much in trades. Like a guy who's just steals, like if you're good on power, isn't going to be as much as just a strictly huge power guy, right? Yeah. Obviously, Aaron Judge doesn't cost as much as like that Ruiz kid on the A's, that outfielder that steals a bunch of bags. I think he was on pace for like 75 steals before he got hurt last year. But right. I think he still stole like 40 something. So like getting him off a team, if somebody has enough steals, easier to get in July or something like that. So be mindful of like the balance of everything. Yeah,
and I did mention punting categories. I would not recommend it. I don't think it's ever worked for me.
Well, when the closer thing started to become shaky, and we were like, Christ, like we drafted 3 closers and 2 of them lost their job or became committees. We decided was like, hey, let's give it a shot and just draft $1 big strikeout, like good whip ERA, like setup guys.
Yeah.
And then we drafted like, because it was the cost effectiveness. So we're like, let's just draft like 2 of those guys, and then you save all that money and put it on like starting pitching and hitting. And we did that. And then the 2 or 3 relievers we drafted ended up getting nuked and having like 4 ERAs and like bad whips. And then we didn't get saves even. So like that killed us. So that's risky too, because you think that, oh, this guy's been the absolute like lockdown reliever for 2 years. And then all of a sudden he has like a 4.2 ERA. And like a 1.25 whip, and what you need is like a 1.05 whip and a 1.8 ERA from a guy like that. If you're going to punt, say
I mean it's obvious, but if you're punting, you're getting a 1, so you're gonna you basically need to get 9s and 10s in every other category. And if you're just wrong about those ratios, then you're wrong. It's the same thing with hitters. If you're punting steals and you end up wrong on batting average, then you've really just lost 2 categories instead of just 1.
Right.
So I think it takes a lot more luck. Maybe, I mean, there's probably people that would say that there's skill involved, and I'm sure there is to a degree, but I think it takes a lot more luck if you're going to punt a category. So I would just recommend not. It's just easier to try and fill every category. And then even if you end up with like a 4 or a 5 or something like that in roto points, it's obviously still way better than getting a 1.
Right. And then one good point that I was talking with somebody about recently was be aware of your league and what other managers are doing. Because if you're thinking about punting saves, if anybody else is punting saves in that league, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because closers are going to be way more accessible. if 1 out of 10 teams is just not rostering 3 closers, it'll be easy to get one cheap. And the idea came from talking about football, which was if they're like the 0 RB strategy is basically you don't draft running backs and you just get all stud wide receivers, tight end, quarterback. But if there's 3 guys doing 0 RB, draft running backs.
There's so much availability at the position.
The value is going to be there. People are going to start filling up on running back, and then they're going to go undervalued. So you got to play the stock market on it, and it could be snake drafts. Just look at how it's going, and all of a sudden, and that's what I do. I always try to go towards what people are ignoring or not drafting, if possible. All right. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to go over some baseball sports betting. Which is always fun because it takes usually 6 months to figure out if you are winning money or not. You could have just made money in the stock market instead, but well, who cares?
All right, I'm gonna throw out my first long shot that I don't actually think is going to happen, but 33-1 for most strikeouts. Tarek Skubal in Detroit.
Skubal. Okay, yeah, no,
yeah.
I don't know his K rate. I know he's a good pitcher, and he was.
It's not. I mean, it's not. It's like 10. It's like his K per 9 is around 10.
Okay.
I think it's It's just over 10. So he would have to up that a little bit, but I mean, I think so. Strider obviously won it last year, going away like it wasn't even close.
Cha-ching.
Yes, sir. I wish you would have told me about that one. I would have loved to have jumped on that with you.
You never call. We don't talk.
We on a fantasy baseball draft together.
I don't know. It just doesn't seem like we talk anymore.
So assuming Strider doesn't lead the way with like his 12 or 13 K per 9, then anybody who's in the double digits there's a lot of Sims. I mean, there's definitely a few guys I think that could surpass him. I mean, there's a lot of guys that could surpass him, but at 33-1, I kind of liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think if he upticks his Ks a little bit, he's right there if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
Let's see. I got that. Oh, the Orioles to win the American League pennant, I got 7.5-1, which I think is a fair price.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's at 6-1 now.
Yeah. So it's moved in the right direction. It makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple long shots. Oh my God, how many did I make? Let me say one thing is that I don't really tend to make these sober. like ever. So I'm like, ooh, what's that? 25-1. Let's go. All right. So my drunken line of thinking was if Aaron Nola can stop being the kind of pitcher that he's always been, he could win a Cy Young.
That's true. If he could just be a completely different pitcher, he could totally win the award.
Yeah. If you get something you don't expect out of Aaron Nola, 25-1 for Cy Young.
Yeah.
The kid that the Marlins kind of sat him for pitch count reasons midseason, Yuri Perez, is 28-1. So I figured if they let him pitch a whole year, like before they sat him, he was super, like he was really sick, like he was really lights out. So he would have to be somebody.
Be any good this year?
I think they'll be like.
You got to get the wins too, right? Even though it's a stupid.
No, I don't think baseball doesn't really look at wins as much anymore.
Yeah, okay.
They kind of came around on that. But that's 28-1. Grayson Rodriguez is 25-1. So if he can just put together what he was doing once he got back into it, and aside from his beginning part, which was terrible, once again, just long shot. Okay, so here's the good stuff. I should have just went to these. Who you don't want no 25-1s. You want the big ones. All right.
Let's go.
All right. Christian Javier 100-1.
Okay.
$10 to win 1,000.
Hey, if it only has to hit, 1 out of 99 times.
That's 2 doubles. That's like not a big deal. All right, Gavin Williams on the Guardians.
Yeah.
100-1 as well. Figured
this is for Cy Young?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, that's a better bet than K's.
That's true.
Because they don't have a chance at K's. Okay, 125-1. Bailey Ober, Twins.
I don't even know who that is, to be honest. I've never heard that name before in my life.
Fair enough. I have almost zero reason on why I bet him. I think the 125 to 1 just looked cool. Tristan McKenzie, which we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
he's 125 to 1. So I figure if he can be healthy, when he was pitching, he was so lights out. If he can just get that. Yeah, so that's basically it. And then I bet under on Ohtani home runs at 38.5, and it was plus 120. And I just did that because he's coming back, even though he's hitting. He did have an elbow injury, and he had Tommy John. And seeing what happened to Bryce Harper last year, it kind of sapped his power. And he was still a good hitter, but I kind of went, well, if Ohtani doesn't hit 45, like, who's to say it saps his power a little bit, he's not quite as good, or he has to sit out a little bit because of soreness, and he could easily hit 28, 33 home runs, something like that. Or maybe he's just Superman and
Maybe.
he won't miss a step. I don't know, but I bet under 38.5 on him.
Yeah, Dodger Stadium, harder to hit to right field or hard? Yeah,
I think it's the same in that stadium. Those fences are pretty equal.
They're
But not a good home run park, and in those evening games next to the coast, and it gets cooler and humid at night games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So and then a lot of divisional stuff, because I mean they do play in Arizona, but they got San Diego's a bad park, San Francisco's a bad park, but they got Colorado, so they got three bad parks and two good parks to hit in.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Any other lottery tickets that you want to buy?
No, like I said, I was looking at Orioles for the AL pennant. I haven't bet it yet, and then I was gonna acquiesce to your superior betting skills for player futures.
Oh yeah, that was one thing I want to talk about that we always joke about. It's so anything like fantasy, sports betting, whatever you might be doing, when you know you're not good at it, just stop thinking you have a chance. You don't have a chance. You're terrible. You're fucking terrible. I know what I'm bad at. It doesn't keep me. I make small bets on the stuff that I know I'm bad at, but you got to checker yourself somehow, right? So that means just go the other way. And no one wants to checker themselves. No one wants to go like, I like the Chiefs this weekend minus 7.5, and then just literally bet the opposite. It's like counterintuitive. What you need to do is find someone you know that is as bad or worse than you and do the opposite of them. And this is part of me and Lance's relationship.
So you're just I get it. You're trying to pick me for bets so you can bet the opposite of them.
Yeah. So you can pick people's brains for insight in a lot of different ways. So Lance is one that I'll occasionally just for entertainment, it'll be a Thursday night football game. I'm like, did you bet this? He's like, yeah, I picked the Titans plus 3.5. I'm like, cool. I'm taking the Jaguars. I just go the other way. I don't even look at it. Don't care. And it's actually 80% rate. It works out. You and Mike Forsch. I just will go the opposite way when I don't care about the game. Just $20, $30, and it works out really well.
I am one of the unluckiest people that you will ever meet.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm ever able to win in fantasy is just a testament to my skill.
Yep. No, the fact is you're actually really good at fantasy. So when you can control the outcome, it matters, right? Managers usually, there's a couple things. A lot of people will talk about and say things that they'll kind of give away their secrets. People in drafts, and you'll hear them talking to the side. They're like, "Oh, I love blah blah blah," and they just let people know who they love.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't tell people who you love in the middle of crowded rooms at the draft. While you guys are all eating pizza or something. Obviously, try not to give away your strategies. Secondly, your strategies are probably not that great anyways, so calm down a little bit about it because no one's strategies are that great. But the other thing is that. If you feel like you see something in fantasy or have an idea on player, blah, 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 you obviously don't want to give that information to people you're competing with. And no one else does, actually. But what I try to do is have a person or two, at least, that I think are good at fantasy baseball, football, whatever it might be, that I'm not in leagues with. Because someone wants to tell you what they feel smart about. The thing is, there's not a lot of outlets because usually we're in leagues with all of our friends. So if you can find someone who's like a good like terminal and a good person to like talk with, they'll give you their sleepers or their reasons, and they'll see something. They'll be like, actually, like he's starting to get more carries or blah, blah, blah. His snap percentage in football's higher. He's getting more playing time. I think his catches are going to go up. And that becomes really valuable. But like when I talk with Lance about football, we compete in football leagues. We're not going to tell each other how much we're bidding that week on Fab on, it could be A-Chan or something that's last year that's available on the waiver wire. We're not going to tell each other what we're doing. So, but if you have someone on the side, it helps a lot. And then also you can bounce ideas. You can tell them what you think and you can freely talk, but your competition, you never can freely talk. So
yeah, but also know if they're any good at it. Just,
that's what I mean. You got to have a good,
from somebody
good
who doesn't
stable.
know anything.
Yeah. You got to have a good stable person, that's actually good,
Yeah.
And that's also up to you to decide on whether they're good or not. And you might be terrible at evaluating talent.
Have conversations with them and see how those things pan out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like, Tony Pollard. Yeah, well, that didn't work out very well for me.
Right. Yeah. Damn. We forgot he broke his leg. Yeah. So that's it for us. Brought to you by Dragon's Milk. Wishing you luck in your fantasy baseball leagues coming up. And Lance and I might be throwing together another baseball podcast or two or something like that, maybe getting into the season. We just want to do something pre-draft. We're also looking to do some future stuff in fantasy football and things like that. And that's going to be it for us. And thanks from Lance and Peter.
Yeah. See ya.